everybody. Welcome to the Football 360 show. It is Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024. Football, high school, and college football seasons winding down. A lot of guys have had their season end already. Unfortunately, though, those guys need to, make sure that they recover and get themselves prepared for going all out in the off season, having the best off season ever.
100%.
Especially if you're a junior.
That's the time.
You want to make it count. You want to make it count before that, but this is your last ride. And you don't want to be one of those guys who are like, well, what can I do? And it's the start of their fall camp.
Oh, that happens.
It happens all the time. What can I do to better myself? What can I do to get myself in a good position? I am JP Rock. He is Matt Bierman. If you have a question, go ahead and reach out to us at our social medias, JP Rock MO or JP Rock Scouts U. There they are. Producer Joe putting them up. Elite Football Academy on the gram and Elite Football on X. As always, you can on YouTube. You can follow us. We're streaming live on YouTube and X. And you can ask us a question on either one of those. On X, it's a Football 360 show. Ask us a question. And on YouTube, it is at Football 360 show as well. And subscribe, share, ask a question, all that good stuff. So winding down, a lot of good football happening.
Some of the best football be played.
Yeah, a lot of big games, a lot of fun games, interesting games this past weekend in college. Lindenwood, huge win from them. We don't talk enough Lindenwood, I don't think.
I watched a good portion of that, and they beat the number 6 SEMO.
Yeah,
and they got after it. It was. I think the weather really played into Lindenwood's hands, and because SEMO likes to throw the ball a lot, and they struggled. The rain was coming down, and it was a little cool, and Lindenwood was playing their butts off, had a great game plan, and got them.
Yeah, so congrats to Coach Stugart and his Lindenwood Lions. Big win right there. The computer's so excited. The music started back up.
Yeah, start the band up.
I thought it was a Lindenwood fight song for a minute.
There we go.
I'm like, wow, that would have been cool, though.
Yes.
If that would have kicked off. But congrats to those guys. I know that they're doing a great job. Heck of a job with the program.
Yep.
Heck of a job with recruiting. I mean, a player that you know very well, I know very well, Hoyt Gregory, just won his conference Offensive Player of the Year as well as first team. Tremendously huge pickup for them.
Yeah, huge pickup. He's a very versatile quarterback, big, strong, can throw the ball,
tough,
runs really well.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that they're going to enjoy having in the locker room too. He's a good dude.
He's a good dude.
Son of a football coach, so he's been around it. This isn't like anything new to him. And I think he's going to be a big jolt for them. I think he'll help locally with recruiting as well.
He has, and he already has his teammate Carter Burdell's going there with him. And I saw that they had a bunch of game day visitors, and I got to tell you what, they had some pretty impressive game day visitors. They've elevated themselves to D1, and you're seeing that with the recruiting and who's showing up for the game days.
What's interesting is then you look at that, and like Mizzou had a big game this weekend, and
huge game.
They had a lot of guys there, but then you see it is interesting when you see like certain guys like there, and you're like, well, how'd that guy get? His buddy. It's usually a buddy going with somebody, and young guys there, a lot of young good talent, and I think it's going to be interesting to see, being in state, getting recruited by Mizzou, though, let's be honest, it's probably 4 to 5 kids per class that they're going to be really targeting, right?
Well, you know what? There's usually more than that, but the problem is that they haven't been landing the best of the best. And I mean, that's not, that's just a fact. You look at this past class and the top guys, Isaiah Mosey, he's going to Nebraska now, was originally committed to Oregon. Corey Sims going to USC. I mean, that's something they need to work on. Good recruiting still. Good program. Picking up the next tier guys, right below those elite guys. But they need to just step that up just to help the program keep.
It is interesting that they, especially with the momentum they've had. But I think that's just very much part of the current environment we live in, because a lot of those kids are hearing things from guys, before Mizzou's even in their ear. They're hearing stuff, from the recruiting collectives and.
But here's what it is. It really does come down to personalities, okay? And the coaches are the ones that you got to close the deal.
Yeah.
And I know from all those situations and talking to these kids on a regular basis, deal wasn't closed.
Yep.
It is what it is. You got to work on that. You got to be introspective, evaluate what you're doing as a coach and with your recruiting, and how can we land these guys? How can you land the D'Air Hills? You know, I mean, you look at some of these guys: Deer Hill, Corey Sims, Isaiah Mosey, just a few.
Yeah, and
You
last
know,
year it was Aeneas Williams,
right?
uh,
Jeremiah Love. I mean, before
Jeremiah
that, yeah,
McClellan.
the list is long. Bingo, list is long. So
Yeah.
really, what you got to do is figure out how to close those deals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's the
And I
bottom
think
line.
it's an age-old deal. It's been going on for years, and I think obviously they can be pretty selective too in their recruiting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to miss too many of those guys, and then you don't want to get them on the bounce back either, because that means something didn't go well for that guy, and something's not going great for you. That you have space, and they have a need to come back this way.
And a lot of people don't want kids to bounce back. I know that a lot of I'm talking fans.
Yeah.
Fans, man, they have long memories, and when they get shunned or they feel their school's been shunned, they're like, "Oh, that guy, I don't want that guy back here." Well, it's they would if he's back here, rushing for 200 yards a game,
right?
They'll forgive him then. But I mean, recruiting's so fascinating, just all the little intricacies on it. And you had a show last week talking about it. And
yeah, we missed you. It was
I almost didn't come back. It was so good.
It was, you know what? I feel really good about what we talked about. I thought Graham and Brett did an excellent job, just kind of giving their feedback and what they've been doing. And I thought it was one of the most telling things is when I had asked them, because they both had, early offers at the beginning of the summer, which, you work all off season, you get to camp and you get this validation, right? It's like unreal. And then, as you and I know how the process works, it just like grinds to a halt most of the time, right? You might even go get 2 or 3 more offers at a different camp.
Right.
It doesn't even matter. And then it just kind of grinds to a halt. And then then the time picks up, and then you get a few more, you get your season in.
But in between there, some doubt creeps in.
Oh, doubt's got to come in, right? It has to.
Creeping in there. And I deal with that a lot with these guys and talking to them and stuff. And it's like, man, patience,
stay course.
Calm. Yeah, stay the course. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I tell every kid, and then it usually picks up. Now, there's some guys who are kind of flash in the pan. They'll get an offer, they'll get some other offers. And we've talked about this multiple times. There's offers and there's committable offers.
Yep.
Right. And throwing an offer out to a guy who's a sophomore at a camp, that doesn't cost you nothing. That's a pretty good one. That doesn't cost you a thing. You got him there. He's thinking about you. If he pans out, if he continues on the same upward trajectory, boom, I'm there. I've been with you all along, baby.
Right.
If he doesn't, it's like, oh yeah, well, we went in a different direction.
And that's where I think it's incumbent upon those kids that do get the offers. And I've said this bunches of times on this show and numerous times in my daily activities. The kiss of death is when a kid gets an early offer and then they think they've arrived.
Yeah.
They think they've made it. So they have to keep working. They have to keep developing. They have to keep, striving to be better, because at the end of the day, they're being invited into a very elite club, right. In college football.
Yep.
So if you're not prepared and you're not ready, then what are we doing? Right. And so I do think where some kids, like both in Graham and Brett's case, I can tell you they're both working their butts off, and you start talking to them about their weight gain and what they're doing, and you can tell by their junior film was better than their sophomore film, right? And so that's what you're looking for. Yep. And so that means there's progress being made. And you would say, well, yeah, naturally their junior film should be better than their sophomore film. That's not always the case.
No, not always. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of guys who peak as sophomores and some guys who peak as a freshman. And we've talked about it before, middle school hero,
high school
zero. And that happens. And so that's why, I start, scouting guys at like 7th, 8th grade, and I watch it progress. And sometimes, I'll go through my database and I'll go through the names. I'll be like, oh, wow, man, he was something. And I haven't heard from him lately. And that's just a sad fact of it.
And I think the direct correlation is sometimes it is because a kid matured earlier than everybody else, which, some of that really stinks, because some of that stuff is insurmountable for some of those athletes as they get older, right. as other athletes mature and they're kind of at their peak. But the vast majority of those kids that we know were really good in middle school that don't do much in high school, are really good as freshmen or sophomores that don't, end up being the guys juniors and seniors.
Yeah.
It's typically they take their eye off the ball, right? And they're not working, and they're not doing what they need to do in the off season,
right?
and making bad choices a lot of times.
Yeah, and it can go the other way. There can be guys who you're like, well, where did he come from? I knew of him, right? Because I actually get out there and watch.
Mhm.
You get out there, you see the guys. Knew of him. He was hanging around, and then something clicked, and boom, he's that guy. Junior year, he came out of nowhere. Well, he didn't come out of nowhere. You knew about him, but he finally got it.
Yep.
It finally clicked in his head, and it's different for everybody. And then you're like, he's a guy.
Yep.
And that's why what I find like fascinating about like rankings, like fan ranking sites, or people that want to rank players and stuff like that. It's like, man, you don't know what you don't know. And there are guys out there. There are guys right now who nobody knows anything, heard anything about. They're in no rankings of any fan sites or anything like that. I know they're going to be dudes, and I know they're going to get D1 offers.
Right.
But you don't, people don't know about them.
Well, too, and you also have guys.
There's a bunch of those guys.
You and I could both walk up to a field, watch certain guys, whether it be the warm up, watch them train, watch them, execute during a game, compete, and say they're not even on a great team, right? And they're not getting all the balls thrown their way, or they're a quarterback and they'll throw a couple picks or whatever, and you're like, 9 times out of 10, you just kind of even ignore that as much as like the behaviors of the player on the field, how well they move, how well they play their position, and them having guys on their supporting staff not helping them is not an indictment of who they are as a player, right? And so, so many people view it as, well, he goes to that high school, they suck. We beat them. Yeah, but he's better than your quarterback, or he's better than your left tackle. He just happens to play on a team that is not great. But those guys can get to the next level and do damage because they are really good players, right? And so I just think that, so many people, and a lot of the fan side stuff is like, like you prey on the kids that are the easy stuff. Like, oh, that guy plays at this school. They produce these number of guys. But let's be truthful. Some of the best players in St. Louis that have gone on and played were not on great high school football teams. Let's say Sheldon Richardson.
Yep.
Gateway wasn't great. I mean, as evidence, this is their first undefeated season ever this year, right? Blaine Gabbert, his experience at Parkway West was good, but not great, but good.
A guy out of Summit, Rockwood Summit, Brandon Williams.
Yeah, right.
I remember seeing first time I laid eyes on Brandon Williams. I'm like, that's a dude, and he wasn't even on varsity yet. He was, I think, he was like a freshman or sophomore, and I'm like, that's a dude, man.
Yeah. Played in the NFL for what, 12 years or plus?
Not just played, but was
dominant.
Yes.
And then you got who else? I mean, you look at some of the other guys that have gone on, like
to do stuff like Kalen Saunders is a guy who people. I mean, was amazing to watch in high school. Yeah, and I love to see like if he does something in the NFL now, and people are like, "Oh man, check out this guy. He's a deep. Look, he's scored." Man, he was doing that at Parkway.
Funny story, yeah. When he was at Parkway Central, I watched him. I think he was a sophomore, and they were playing Parkway West at West, and they put him at fullback, and he was a thick, not super tall, but
what grade was this?
Probably sophomore year, I think.
He was already like 6'2", 300
Yeah,
pounds.
but he was like thick, like he's like a block, right?
Yeah.
And they had him. He was playing fullback. And he takes a ball, like I think they actually threw it like a little swing pass to him. And he takes it down the sideline. It's like 70 plus yards. And there was 2 ladies that were celebrating in front of me. And I walked over and I said, "Hey, are you guys related to him?" And yeah. It was the grandma and his mom. I was like, he's a major football player. Well, then fast forward, and they're like kind of like, huh? Like they're excited about the game, right? And he was not getting very heavily recruited. If you remember, that team had Jonathan Bonner, who ended up going to Notre Dame. Oh my God, the big running back, the other running back that went to Iowa.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll remember his name. But yeah, they had those 3 guys, but Saunders was the least of the 3 as far as recruiting. And I remember having a conversation with Mark Watson at Western Illinois, and be like, "Have you seen this cat? Like he can move. He's unreal." And then they went down the pathway. I think that was one of his only real big offers.
I believe
it
was,
if not only offers.
I was going to say I'm not 100% sure, but I don't
positive.
think
there's a lot, right? And so and then maybe a few other smaller schools snuck in late trying to steal them. Yeah. But he gets there, and I remember talking to Coach Watson about it. He was like, "Man," because we had another kid, Arturo from Parkway West, Arturo Romero walked on there at the same time, and just kind of keeping tabs on how those guys were doing. He was like, "Yeah, Saunders is going to start for he is a freak, like he is a freak." And then fast forward, he comes out, and the NFL is doing highlights on him. He's the 300-pound kid that can backflip.
Yeah,
right. And but that was the same kid.
Yeah.
That at Central when they had them. And I remember going out with one of our coaches, Marcus Snosek. We watched them play Zumwalt North at Zumwalt North in a playoff game.
Yeah.
And it was a butt whooping. I mean, Parkway Central. And unfortunately for them, that was actually like the peak of their success because they've kind of had a tough time since then. They've not, that was kind of like.
That really was the peak of their success.
Yeah, they just haven't had much.
Years. And no, Kalen was amazing to watch, and I might like age myself, but you remember that like episode of the Flintstones where Fred Flintstone goes back to college, these twinkle toes. That was Kalen Saunders when he ran the ball.
Unreal.
I mean, people just bouncing off him, hanging on to him, and he just went outside. He was just twinkle toes, and he was so fast and quick at 6'2", 300 pounds, just like a tailback.
But those are the guys that make it to the NFL,
correct?
Right? They have unique outlier skill sets. They have unique athletic abilities. And they possess the size. And so I think, that's why you got to keep in perspective. Like, what do you want to, and that's what I talked to the guys about last week. Like, what do you want to get from football, right? You got to use the game as much as it's going to use you. Realistically, the vast majority of kids playing high school are not going to play college. And realistically, the vast majority of guys playing college are not going to play professional, right? And they're just not.
Right.
And I know that, like, we kind of live in a little bit of a sheltered world. Like, you walk into our facility, and we have guys that are coaching and training right now that are professional. They play in the UFL, the former XFL. They're in there hanging around, they're coaching. And we got guys that, on their bye weeks from the NFL that are back. And we have guys that are in the off season. So it seems like it's pretty attainable, right? But at the end of the day, like those guys worked their butts off. They were given God-given abilities and stayed the course. And the vast majority of them would tell you, like, yeah, they're fortunate to be in the position they're in because they realize all the other good players they've played with that are done and retired and don't even, get paid to play football. So, you got to respect what's going on in the game. And if you get to do that, that level, and you're fortunate enough,
right? You
don't take it for granted, which is crazy when you see guys in the NFL behave sometimes the way they behave, and it's like, man, you're one cut away from being like the rest of us on the other side of the fence. Like what are we doing here?
It really is all about like your mindset, your demeanor, and appreciating what you have and doing what's right. And I know that's hard to hear for a lot of people, especially younger people today don't want to be told what to do or how to behave a lot of the times. But you really, really have to, that's all part of the plan.
Well, look, there's rules in society, there's rules in the game, right? And I think that you learn that you have to play with inside the rules of the game, and as good as you can and as best you can, and things can go well, right? You don't want to shy away from, playing near the rules, right? Because there's certain things that, like formations as a coach, there's certain things you do and motions and. Like if you remember a couple weeks ago, East St. Louis was doing they got set and then they'd do like a freeze and then they'd look away, and IMG jumped offside numerous times,
right? Where
someone would look and go, well, that's pretty, come on, well, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
But they're playing within the rules of the game. It's not illegal, and they're getting their opponent to jump off sides. Great, right? That's playing within the rules. So.
It is, and it can be tough this time of year to play within the rules. Unfortunately, I see a lot of guys just, they're angry, they're dejected. I was at a game over the this past weekend, and somebody put 60 on another team and just kept going, and that's when fights start. That's when guys start taking cheap shots, and there's some ticky tacky stuff and that goes on, and that's just something that I do wish would be.
I know.
Be addressed and be reeled in more by both referees and the coaches. And some coaches do. You don't want to wait until there's a brawl at the middle of the field.
No.
Before you start trying to reel everybody in. And it's unfortunate, but I don't know. I would hate to think that coaches encourage stuff like that. but a lot of them let some stuff go. And I'm not going to single anybody out, but I mean, it's just young people, and they're there's an adrenaline and there's anger.
Look, I'll
things
tell
aren't
you,
going your way. Your season's about to end.
JP, I watched it this year. The shots getting taken on young quarterbacks that you would say, oh, well, that's just football. But you can clearly hear the referee saying balls away, when the ball is being thrown, right? Some refs are better than others. But kids diving at legs. I mean, I'm going back on my 8th grade highlight film and watching our season.
You're talking about 8th grade doing
I'm watching film. We have a D lineman that is rather dominant, and I'm watching with like 2 DNs and then a tackle, and then really, really good D line. But like watching like an end come off the ball and a running back come up and cut him, like you can't, like, come on, like literally like a full on cut. Like, no, you can cut block at the line of scrimmage.
Did he get hurt?
The guy is such a good athlete. He kind of shucked him down and kept going.
Yeah.
But a lesser athlete or someone not prepared for that, you can't cut. A guy in the backfield cannot cut a live, guy coming through, right? So, the line of scrimmage, you have one opportunity to cut, and if that guy's 1 yard from the line of scrimmage, and that's your first move, you can go directly at his legs. And I think that's a great way to prevent bull rushing. I think it's a great way to slow down, and it's a good competitive advantage for the offense. But it's within the rules of the game, right? But then when you see stuff after the play, and I think we have a video that someone had sent us that, to me, you see stuff often inside of games, right? And you see kids get frustrated, right? And you hate to see someone's bad behavior or frustration end up hurting somebody else, right?
That's the main
so
thing.
like on this play, like, so this was sent into the show and asked us, like, hey, what is your view on this, right? Yeah. And my view is someone got beat, the ball's gone, the refs are now looking at the ball. And then if you watch the lineman that's in the right in the forefront right here he's gonna beat him, and then the offensive lineman grabs, pulls, and then now he's looking away, and you watch.
Is that grabbing the leg?
Which looks benign, and then you find out that the athlete has now torn their ankle and can't play the rest of the season, right?
Yeah.
So,
see, that's the worst part about it.
And to me, as a coach, it's tough because you're not like in a scenario where you're wanting to say, hey, you're doing that, right? Because we've all been around players that have done things. We've been around our own kids that when they do things, you're like, I mean, where'd you learn that?
When you're in the heat of the battle like that, you can lose your composure and do silly stuff.
But here's the problem I have with this. I don't see it, and maybe there's a flag thrown. I don't know the whole story. Yeah. But when the referee should be watching the the quarterback.
Yeah.
So if that happens, it happens, right? So at the end of the day, things happen, kids get hurt, plays happen. My opinion is, if something like that does happen and the referees don't see it, then that's where the players and coaches need to be like, hey, you got to watch this, because 9 times out of 10, this has probably happened other times in the game, and the player needs to say something about it. You know what I mean?
And you'll see it. Like a good coach he'll see that happen, and
then walk out on the field.
He pulls his player out. Yeah. I see it all the time. Where if somebody does something ticky-tack, or just maybe it's nobody's fault, maybe they weren't intentionally trying to. But if they see that happen, they will pull them out. And I've seen them just dress them down on the sideline, and that's how it. You got to reel people in.
And it is a fine line, because I will tell you, I have seen, and it's happened in our facility. I've seen it in games where, and this doesn't sound, I don't want it to sound bad, but sometimes a kid is not really fluid or as athletic as, say, someone else.
Yeah.
And the problem is once that happens, they get beat and they have like an awkward response.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, it is like one of those things where, like, and somehow the other guy that beat him now gets leg whipped, or something happens, and you're like, man, that looked really bad. But the problem is, if you take your self back, you're like, That was just an athletic move.
It was another
that like very herky jerky, and
or
unfortunately
grabbing and clawing, ripping somebody's shirt.
But like, so do you remember last year we showed a clip just similar to this, but it was the referee and the player on the field, same type of thing, right? So the referee gets angry.
Yeah.
He throws an elbow basically at the kid crossing his face. Like the kid was like, didn't even see it coming.
Right.
And he gets knocked on the ground. But that's the same thing. You have these frustrations. You would just hope the coaches, like, I don't know that any one coach would ever teach that, right? But you do say, hey, guys, we all can learn from this. You can't be doing stuff like that, right? And if the referees, in my opinion, especially if it happens by a quarterback, the referee should be seeing that, right?
100%.
I mean, but I will tell you,
well, something egregious like that. I mean, that's how do you miss that,
right? And but JP, I will tell you, is watching quarterbacks as much as I do, the number of shots that you see quarterbacks take in high school and middle school football where there's no flags, and it is. And I'm telling you, if you say something to the referee about it, like they are somewhat like, what do you want me to do? Like, well, I want you to call it so the guy doesn't get his head taken off. The ball's gone. He's defenseless.
Right. No, I mean, and that's surprising because as many flags as I've seen thrown in games this year that, they're not calling stuff like that.
You don't see a lot of that.
And I've actually seen some stuff this year where like a coach is just trying to get clarification. Right. And depending upon the ref, they get really angry. Well, and they I mean, I actually saw one just kind of humiliate a coach in front of his team. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? How is he going to go back to his team when you're trying to like emasculate him? When you're like, I'm the alpha guy here. I get it. You are the ref, but man, there's ways and there's ways, And I guess we're talking about all this stuff because it's the culmination of the season, and we've seen a lot of stuff.
Well, look, you're at the end of your game and you're losing, or I don't even know what the score of the game is at that point. I have no idea. But if you do get beat, and I will tell you, I've watched it happen in our own facility where somebody will get beat, and then that person does try to be a jerk to kind of like get even. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that, well, as soon as it happens, the adults in the room step up, and that ain't happening, right?
Right.
You do it to the wrong guy, you're gonna get caught, right? You're gonna someone's gonna do something to you. You're gonna get retribution, but the issue at hand is when it happens in the referees, and I will tell you, I think most coaches would agree that the vast majority of their arguments with referees have nothing to do with like egregious calls. Like it's more about player safety.
That's what it's 100% about.
And then the problem is you start talking about player safety and they ignore you, or they do what you just said and they get mad and they want to dress down the coach right there in front of them, like verbally, and there's only so much that coach can do.
I would call it verbal intimidation. I've seen.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
And because you're on the sideline, you hear it all the time. And there are some really, really good coaches that try to get their point across, and they just don't want to listen to them. Right. And the unfortunate thing is, and I've brought this up numerous times, and I tell people, I think, and this is maybe controversial, but one of the biggest mistakes that could have ever been made, if you go look at all these schools, not all of them, but a lot, and then like the soccer field around town, there's a sign that says respect the referees, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a movement. Well, I would argue that there also needs to be two more signs there: respect the players, and respect the coaches, because it's a three-way street. And when you lose balance in that, and I think we have lost balance because we've talked about this. There's reffing shortages, so that puts people behind the 8 ball. So then we're begging for people to referee. But again, like if this game is what it means to us, like then we need to, as a game and as a unit, recruit the best people, pay them to referee the game we love, and they should love the game as much, and they should equally as respect the players and coaches, because as soon as one group gets too much power, it's a problem, right? And we've been at games where the game gets taken over by officiating crews. There's a guy that retired. I would show up to games and I'd see him. I'm like, oh, if he has the microphone on tonight, because like some stadiums don't mic him in. Yeah. I'm like, it's over. I mean, you were going to have so many calls, and it was the same guy. He finally
you
retired.
Don't want them to be the show.
he was the show.
Yeah.
And you know that the coaches on both sides are like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And then, you know,
I'm telling you what, it is a thing of beauty when you have good refs.
Oh,
and
it's
that
great.
and it just I mean, it is as it should be.
and there are a lot of
there's a
great
lot of
crews.
great ones. Oh,
There's
yeah.
a lot of great
Yeah,
crews.
I always love it when I show up and I'm like, oh man,
here we go.
Here we go.
These
It's gonna
guys,
be a good game, man.
and I will say, in to the respect of the refs, what causes issues for them sometimes is the bad referees, right? And the bad experiences people have. So then they go in a little bit jilted and like, But a lot of these refereeing crews, I'm friends with some guys that ref at high levels, you know, in high level high school and college, and they're watching film. Like the high school crews, the good high school crews are all watching film. They're together. They're communicating.
You can tell.
I watched a playoff game a couple weeks ago, and now it may have been someone that was new or they were missing one of their guys from their crew, but they kept yelling to this guy. He was out of position constantly. But what I will say is, as someone that loves the game, I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool that they're getting on this guy because he is not giving the best. He's not helping them, and he's kind of making it a little tough to ref the game.
Right.
So, like, they were on him. I mean, you could hear him on the field. So it's pretty interesting to hear that communication.
Yeah.
And but yeah, when you see plays with someone going down and after a play, like that's unnecessary. Like,
Right.
And even here's the problem: a penalty gets called, the ankle still hurt. The unfortunate truth, but could it have been prevented had that happened earlier in the game? Probably something similar.
And that's really why I mentioned and what I mentioned, you know, about regarding this is everybody, you know, let's keep everybody safe and healthy.
Heck yeah.
You don't want to ruin somebody's opportunity to play college football or, you know, cause them any time or their family any hardship. You know, just control yourself, control your emotions. Play the game, you know. If you get beat, you get beat. You get them on the next play.
Yeah, right.
That's how
move your feet.
But the bottom line is safety, and I don't even like talking about the refs or any of this stuff. You know, because my thing is the football, right? And unfortunately, though, you got to bring it up, and we bring it up to just try to get everybody to, you know, pay attention,
take a deep breath, relax.
Yep. You know,
it is just football.
It is a game. Yep. And you do belong to a brotherhood, and you won't want that happening to you or one of your teammates.
Amen.
So just, you know, keep it all together.
Keep it classy, right?
So on another note, besides Leonard Wood's big win, how about that Mizzou game? How far has Oklahoma fallen as a program?
As I'm watching, I was thinking the same thing. I'm
absolutely.
Like, wait a second. This is the same program that every year you're hearing about 4 and 5 stars that are coming there. They got all these guys. They have all these studs that are supposed to be in there. And then suddenly, like, what are they? Like, they're like, we don't have our starting quarterback. And Drew Pine finished the game strong, but he was finding his way, right? I mean, he was finding his way.
I got to tell you what, it's so funny because, you know, unfortunately, I do know some Brady Cook haters.
Oh, really? There's some?
Yeah, there was one or two out there. And one I talked to, and actually on the way into the studio, I was talking to him. You know who you are. I'm sure you're watching. And he's like, yeah, Drew Pine, great game. I go, that's fascinating because I never hear you say Brady Cook, great game.
Right.
It's always Brady missed this, Brady missed that. And so it's just the mindset is just kind of wild.
I mean, here's the thing, like Brady Cook's in that game.
Yeah. It's not close.
It's not even close because they're executing at a higher level.
Correct.
I mean, Drew Pine, God love him, got the win, but there's numerous plays where he broke the pocket and then just continually looked to the right and just threw it off the field, the type of scenario, right? Just like and then I was talking to somebody about it, and I guess Drinkowitz had talked about how Pine's vision is not like, and I don't know if it's his quarterback vision or his physical vision, where he struggles to see stuff in the middle of the field. So if you notice, everything's to the edge.
Yep.
But yeah, like that's one of those things that you got the victory. Now they're on this week is going to be a big week.
Oklahoma is not the Oklahoma of yore. You know, I mean, and I don't even know because I don't even get that feel from Mizzou fans. I mean, you know, I was there on the sideline when they beat number 1 Oklahoma.
I was there as well.
And it was crazy. I mean, it was, you know, it didn't get that feel. You know, Oklahoma's 5-5. Their defense.
I think Oklahoma was coming here to thinking they were going to get a victory, right? You know,
thinking they were going to turn it around. Yeah. Nah, they don't know. Mizzou's better than that. You're not going to do that. Welcome to the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
How about Brent Venables? I mean, you know how many years he was defensive coordinator, and people were like, "Man, how come he's not getting a head coaching job? How come he's not getting?"
He don't look comfortable as a head coach.
No, and it's funny that I was talking to the same guy I was talking to about the Drew Pine. There's a reason. Clearly, the people interviewing him saw something that was like, no, that's not right. And I'm not ready to throw dirt on his coaching career just yet. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think he's gonna stick around? I don't see how. This is the worst job I've seen, or the worst the program's been since. Remember the John Blake years?
They're downtrodden. I mean, but I don't understand because they've gotten so many guys, right? They have all these studs, and then they don't produce, right?
They have studs in areas, yeah.
But coming into the SEC, they're in a pretty weakened state. Whereas when Mizzou came into the SEC, Mizzou was actually in a pretty strong position.
Right.
And I think there's been a lot of back and forth with the old Bob Stoops and Drinkowitz. And Drinkowitz does not mind mixing it up. I don't know if you noticed.
A funny cat,
he tweeted at one of the Post-Dispatch writers.
He likes the troll, man. And, he likes the troll.
He said, well, why don't you let the game be over before you start, basically talking trash. And which, again, like I would get the frustration on his part. I wouldn't do the guy any satisfaction of tweeting back to him. It's just like,
I would.
But he got him. I mean, he got him. And you know what? To the guy, I don't even know his name, but to his defense, he's like, I'm not going to run from him. I'm going to leave it up.
I didn't delete it. I got to take it.
Yeah, I'm going to take it.
But lesson learned. I mean, be careful what you're tweeting. Yeah. And I will say this much, and I don't mind saying it. You're not a fan.
Yeah.
Don't tweet like one.
Correct.
So I feel good on you for keeping it up and owning it, but you're not a fan, man.
Yeah. If you're,
you may be, but you got to hide that stuff.
Yeah. And and I think, there are people that have that bad view because they've been beaten down and bad experiences. But look, the reality of it is, every year, only one team is the national champion. So to sit here and think like, we're abused because we haven't won all the Mizzou's, again, not Alabama.
They're in a good spot.
But good spot. And be thankful that we're not KU, and be thankful that we're not, not Oklahoma.
Right.
Be thankful. And Mizzou's got good traction, getting quality recruits. They've got plenty of money coming in.
They're on the upward trajectory.
They're expanding the stadium. I think there's so many positives going for Mizzou that why be so down, why be so downtrodden and like this woe is me, like, oh, Mizzou. Right.
I'll tell you how good Mizzou's position is. They just beat Oklahoma. And it's like, yeah, we beat Oklahoma. We're used to that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting from the fans. It's like, that's when you've arrived.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not like storming the field, tearing down the goalposts.
Yeah, right.
Right? You're like, yeah, we beat Oklahoma. We knew we would beat Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the years that the Oklahoma game with John McGaffey.
Yeah, he worked with us for a little while. John McGaffey. Yeah, what a good dude. Yeah, he was. He took that thing to the house. That was awesome.
That was a fun time. That Pinkel era there with Pinkel and Yost and all those dudes down there. That was a fun time.
Dave Yost popped up on my timeline the other day.
Did he really?
He's down at Florida International, I think.
Yep. FIU. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
He's down there.
Yeah, so
he's a good dude.
Yeah, those were some good days. And honestly, Mizzou owes a lot to that time. Mizzou fans of today they got a lot of really good, strong momentum going, and they had good national recruits. I mean, they had guys that stayed home
mm-hmm.
and won.
I have that argument with people now, and people are like, "Oh, well, Mizzou's recruiting is way better than the Pinkel years." And I'm like, "Huh?"
I wouldn't say
Sheldon
so.
Richardson, Jeremy Macklin, Glenn Gabbert.
Yeah.
It's like you got Alden Smith. It's like, come on, guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now start matching guys for that, right?
And he started from nothing. I mean, firsthand what was there and what was there facility-wise and what was there player-wise. And it was done with Mears, you know, before Smith got there. It was done with Mears. I mean, there were days I remember all the way back to the time when they were taking guys from SMU when they got the death penalty. They were taking SMU leftovers.
Yeah. And now SMU's back on the rise. How about that? They got all that money.
Man.
That guy paid all that money, gets him in the ACC, and now they might be the top team in the ACC, right?
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, they might win it and get into the playoffs.
That's pretty wild.
To me would be awesome for college football, because what got done to them and others that cheated, the death penalty for them and not equal at all.
Not equal punishment.
No, not for sure.
Anywhere near it. And in fact, speaking of like the playoffs, I mean, I'm pretty excited about when you look at the rankings, right? And those are rankings that actually do matter, right? You look at those rankings and you see a bunch of names in there. It's not the norm. It's not Alabama, Georgia, Alabama. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State's still up there. But you're seeing some names up there that are just.
They might not be after this weekend. They play Indiana.
Indiana's one of them. How about that?
How about Linnell Carr?
Man, is that just a great story?
Yeah. I look back. I know Stignetti's brother from when he coached with the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
He was quarterback coach here when I was working with Austin Davis back in the day. That was his quarterback coach.
Yeah.
But when they interviewed his, Coach Stignetti at Indiana, and everybody wants to know who he is, and I win. Just Google me, right? That was just Google me, right? And I think there's that realization of like, yeah, he probably knew he was going to go in there and turn it around because he's confident in what he can do and his staff. But to see it at 10-0,
that's.
And now I will say, admittedly, like if you look at their strength of schedule, it's not unbelievable, but they've beaten who they've played. Right?
Exactly. And you remember the years that Indiana would come in and they'd beat the hell out of Mizzou, and they'd wind up being a 7-5 team, and everybody would be like, Mizzou fans would be, man, we wish we could get to Indiana's level.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? I mean, that's how things have changed. But to see that, I mean, if you're a Big Ten fan, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself. You got Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana in the top 10. I mean, you're like,
now you might not be feeling as good once they start playing other teams, and that's what's going to be nice about the playoffs,
right? Yeah. Then you're going to find out what's what. I mean, I would not be surprised if they get into the playoffs and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, Tennessee's beating the undefeated Big Ten teams, Ole Miss. I mean, what do you think is going to wind up? How do you think that playoffs is going to shake out?
I don't know. I mean, the problem is the SEC just beating the crap out of each other, right? I mean, it's hold on for dear life. Mizzou ends up saying they're just a 2-loss team. Some of these other, like Georgia, might get bounced if they lose this weekend, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, they're hanging on right there. You got Georgia, you got Alabama up there, who went in and handled LSU and the Live Tiger. The Live Tiger didn't help. They
did not. You know what? I went down there this summer. We saw the Tiger this summer. Where it was the Tiger's cage and part of it, right? Because it's kind of hanging out. It was kind of raining. He didn't want to come out. But and then Ole Miss, like that whole environment down there, like they are like
they're turning it around.
They're turning around, and you don't see the panic that you used to see with one loss, right?
Right.
With 2 losses, the third loss is going to be the kiss of death. But that second loss, if you can right your ship and keep winning, I mean, Mizzou, the only negative for them is both their losses were statement losses. I mean, they got beat. Now, Texas A&M, that was, I mean, okay, it is what it is. But the Alabama one, you lose your starting quarterback second drive. I mean, that's
what you want to do is avoid another statement loss along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, Arkansas is doing pretty well, if I remember right. They're not the same as they had been. South Carolina's, I mean, they can beat somebody and then they can lose bad the next week.
I know, it's crazy.
It's really crazy. And Mississippi State, I think, is their other game. And I don't even know. I haven't really been paying attention. They're pretty bad.
Bouncing along. Yeah. They're bottom of the league.
So, but I mean, it's probably the most exciting college football season in a long time.
I mean, who would have thought
a fan.
Vanderbilt?
Isn't that something? Yeah.
I mean,
that's parity. You know
right.
what I mean? That's parity. That's the portal.
That's the portal getting guys in there. Yeah, right. And I think that now you got Pavia's fighting for an extra year or two because of his JUCO. The NCAA has just left itself wide open for these lawsuits and antitrust stuff, like the way they behaved for all those years, and these rules that we just arbitrarily everybody accepted as like, well, yeah, if you went to 2-year school, your clock starts ticking on this day, and if you went to a 4-year school, then your clock starts ticking on this day. Well, Yeah, but when you're control freaks and you're controlling how people, earn money, don't earn money, get money, like scholarship money, and all those rules that they had that kind of kept the money off of themselves are coming back to the dam is broken, then they are in trouble. And I think, we've talked about this, and we can talk, throughout the winter, we'll probably talk more, but these other sports, like the track coaches and softball coaches and baseball coaches, are just getting scared to death because it's starting to get close, because they're starting to ratify. Like Mizzou is fully vested into that lawsuit, and they're going to pay their portion, and they're going to start paying their athletes, right? They're going to abide by the law, of the lawsuit that just went through, right? Yep. So once that starts happening, there's going to be real world consequences for that $22 million leaving the budget and going to the players' pockets, not the university's pockets. And I think there's going to be some unintended consequences. And if teams don't choose to play at that level, they're just going to kind of be relegated to obscurity, right? And those kids are going to be leaving those programs, and you're going to see a glut of, like, the parity we're seeing now is because it's an even playing field. But, 3 years from now, if say Vanderbilt say, hey man, we're not going to, they get a president or chancellor that says, hey, we want, we're not going to fully participate in this. However that works, and they don't fully participate, and they can't pay, the statutory $100,000 that every kid in Division I FBS is getting paid. Power 5 schools or Power 4 schools, like, how do you compete?
Yeah, now there'll be a definitely realignment then,
right?
Because you're going to have it's so wild what's going on, and especially as like far as you're a high school player and you want to be recruited, right? I mean, you're basically, you have your shot up until I think the day after signing day is when the portal opens up. And so their strategy is to recruit up to that. And then, so, I mean, there are guys who might be on their board, but they're like, okay, like this guy, but we're going to wait and see what we get in the portal. I mean, that is so changed recruiting and made it to where, and this is why we're seeing the parity. There are dudes who are falling down to lower levels of football who should be playing at a higher level, but they fall down, and these schools are grabbing them. And so you're seeing teams like that. That's why you're seeing upsets like with Lindenwood, and various teams like that, because there's just there's more good players. Now, everybody might not get the opportunity,
right?
But you're going to have it's going to be the better product, and that's unfortunate, because just because somebody doesn't get that opportunity doesn't mean they can't play
100%
at a higher level. And it just really just plays out to, how's the portal going to go? It's all, I mean, your life as a high school recruit is really dependent upon the portal way more than
I was telling Brett and Graham last week, like a lot of the recruiting stuff is so far out of your control, and you don't realize like all the moving parts. So you can't even take it personal as much as it hurts you and makes you mad. You can't. And I'm sure the parents take it personal and say, oh, those guys. And but the problem is what you just said, the number of variables that were already existing prior to NIL and the transfer portal were unlimited. Right, roster issues, things like that. Now you add in NIL and you add in the the transfer portal. My gosh, because what people don't think about is like, well, okay, you guys are taking a quarterback in this class, right? Well, what if someone comes in, or what if someone leaves, or they have a tight end that leaves, and then there's a backup. Or they get a tight end that comes in, and there's a guy that's a backup tight end that used to be the quarterback that they pushed over there.
Yeah.
He's now coming back to the quarterback group.
Yep.
Right? Because they're trying to shuffle those guys. And I think that is really difficult, because if you have not been around this world long enough, like it'll be way over your head. You're not even going to see it. You're not going to understand that, like, oh, that's what happened. Or you'll think they're lying.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, they're not. They're just telling you the truth about what the situation is. If they get to the point where they're telling you the truth, though, that means they like you.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of times you're probably going to be fibbed to as well. Like, they're going to tell you, like, hey, you're top of our list, top of the board.
Yeah.
If someone's telling you they're at the top, you're at the top of their board, and you don't have an offer, you're probably not the top of their board.
It's a different board than you think.
Oh, you're in the board in the other room.
You're on that. Room. You're on that C board, right? Not the A or the B board. You're on that C board. You're at the top of our C board.
Which and the C board is when all things go wrong.
Right. It's gamed out to where we miss on this guy, but we got this guy down here,
and he'll come.
He's on the top of. But we talk about it, and it is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm seeing some guys who are really good, talented players, and I'm going to mention a couple names here. Elliot Hummer at Fort Zumwalt West, who was injured, unfortunately, like his first 3 games or something like that. Just an incredible athlete, linebacker, 6'3", 222.
Possesses all of it.
All of it. The 10-plus broad jump, the 36, 38 vertical. Now, I saw he was down at SIU Carbondale, right? Which, that's nice. Given the environment. Yeah. Isaiah Warren, defensive back out of Westminster. Unbelievably talented kid, right? Again, you look at it, you're like, well, we're not sure. But then you look and it's the portal and it's, the other stuff that's going on.
Do I take an 18-year-old project that's developing, and every 18-year-old's a project? I don't care who you are.
Yep.
Compared to other guys who are in college. Or do I take the 22-year-old that has an extra year left?
And did this at, Miami of Ohio or did this at BYU. And I mean, it's, from a business perspective, I understand that. I don't know. A guy like Isaiah, a guy like Elliot, they're going to be the deal. They're going to be fine wherever they go. And so it's not, what's really funny is back in the day, you signed with a college and that was
your lot.
That was your lot. That was your journey. Your journey's not over. You can have several different journeys. It's just like with people and younger people in employment, right? You're probably going to have 2-3 careers. Well, you might have 2 or 3 college careers, as far as where you wind up, depending upon how you keep, your trajectory, how good you become, how you produce.
Look at Oklahoma. They have Jackson Arnold. That's their guy. You had forces inside that camp that wanted him, and they had Dylan Gabriel there last year, who's arguably one of the top quarterbacks in the country. They let him get out of there.
Yeah.
Do you think he would have just left? Well, maybe he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But why would he just leave, right? Because
right.
But he was getting kind of pushed because, like, hey, there's pressure to get this 5-star guy, this Jackson Arnold, who, again, in time might be great. But guess what? He's probably going to be great at Houston.
Exactly.
He's probably not going to be great at Oklahoma. He's going to go somewhere else, right? Or he might be Ohio State. Who knows? They might need somebody. He goes. He fits better. You just don't know.
Think how much better they would have been if he'd have gone the Manning route, right, and not come in and have to be the dude.
I think Texas will benefit. But what's interesting is the guy that commands the most is Arch Manning.
Yep.
And the person that's not demanding has people in his corner that know what's best for him. And sure, they want to see him getting the reps that he got this year are going to be invaluable for Texas next year. But you also don't hear his family squawking that he should be the starter.
Because they know.
Because they understand.
Right.
Like, if that's my son, I'm okay.
Right.
I'm okay as long as...
They're playing long ball.
I'm okay as long as... And I don't see this ever happening to him. I'm okay if they screw him, like next year when he waits his turn, then they pull some hijinks and bring in some other guy.
Yeah.
But like, if you're going to be that guy, a program guy, you're going to come in, wait your turn, get earn your stripes, be in the room and learn and be an assistant and help as much as you can. Then when it's your turn, everybody's going to benefit from that.
Because as you well know, working with quarterbacks like you do, you can really mess them up.
Oh.
Right. And what's interesting is I remember when Drew Lock was kind of like thrown out there to the wolves, he took a beating. And I got to see that up close because I was, there at every game, post game, locker room, talking to him. It's amazing that how he was able to, hold it all together and overcome all that and make it to the NFL. Because that freshman year, you were like, man.
Yeah, it was rough.
I don't know how he's gonna. But you got to have that to play quarterback on a high level.
Oh yeah,
you got to have a steel trap mind.
You got to be Brady Cook, who's hurt.
Another guy, yeah,
pulling going to the hospital and coming back and going in the game.
Yeah,
right. You got to be. That's kind of who you have to be if you're going to be a high level guy.
And it's interesting when I'm scouting quarterbacks and I see that, and I see, he's got the tools, he's got this, but there's the other stuff, the other factors,
How they
the
behave on the
intangibles, the it
sideline,
factor. Correct. Yeah.
how they
Good
talk to their
kid, great
teammates.
kid, all that stuff. But you want to have that steel, you want to see that steel spine, right?
Yeah.
And it up here. Because even if you just look good and you're productive,
there's a lot of
it's more than
combine
that.
quarterbacks, man.
Yes.
And I will tell you, I was telling someone last night, like the best 7-on-7 quarterbacks you will see 9 times out of 10 are not the best tackle football quarterbacks. And there's it's very obvious. Like there's certain kids where you're like, oh, that kid's good. Like you'll watch him at 7-on-7, you're like, he's good. Then you put him in a football game and he turns into a lion because there's the physical side of the game and there's the the time and all the different, because it times differently and it's the run aspect and checking in and out of plays like that. Just like that, 7-on-7 is great, but it doesn't get that same feel.
Right.
So,
speaking of 7-on-7, real quick.
Yeah.
Got a couple of dates coming up.
We got a tryout for Midwest Boom this Friday night. 7 to 8:30 at Rams Park.
If you're not playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, if you're not playing, right? So we did our math. There's like 3/4 of the teams are out by this point, right?
Yeah.
There's fewer teams playing than when the season started.
Right.
But we have that, and then there'll be the 27th, which is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that morning from 9 to 10:30. So we got good groups of kids signed up. Would definitely encourage anybody that's interested in playing to come give it a shot. See what it shakes out. I think you place a little bit of importance on things that are going to help you get better. The compelling argument with us is, the training and the coaches that you have, it's second to none. The experience we have in the 7-on-7 game is vastly greater than any other club in St. Louis, just because of how long we've done it, right? From our days back when the Rams, like when no one was thinking about 7-on-7, we were taking teams across the country doing 7-on-7.
I was going to say it's part of a great national.
And then being a part of Boom from a perspective of name awareness with college coaches and recruiting scouts and recruiting programs is far greater than any. You want to be a part of something that is on a national scale if you want to be a national player, right? If you want to be regional, by all means, there's local teams that have good regional reach, right? But I would not say the same as what Boom has built. And I think that's what when we partnered with the NFL, we did that for our kids for that reason. And we partnered with Boom, 12 plus years ago with Boom. And it's been really good because their reach is significant.
But it's not like a team from California who's going to fly you out places and offer you stuff.
We have
sign you.
Our
deals.
kids are from the Midwest, right? We're not an all-star team that tries to pick up kids from everywhere, right?
Right.
We have had kids from over the years come play with us from different locations. We had a couple of kids that played at IMG a few years back, but they flew in and tried out to be on our team here, which was great. But preferably, we want the kids to be from our region and our area to go represent.
Right. So back to recruiting, I had another question from a viewer who their kid got an invite to. It says it's a junior day, and really what it is it's a practice. You get to watch practice, tour facilities. They have an info session, and you get to meet with the coaches, and it's really not like the junior days that happen post in the January 1st. But that's kind of a cool deal to go to.
Heck yeah.
Should want to is that worth attending? And it is not like the other junior days. That sounds very, very much so. They like their son's film. They're showing interest. That kind of interest, you want to take advantage of that, especially if you can, especially if it's within driving distance.
Yeah, if it works, and I would suggest then you obviously put it out there, right, that you're going to it,
right?
And thanks for the invite, and then put pictures from when you were there.
100%.
Meet as many coaches as you can, right? I think that those events like that, especially if they're doing it, that's a little different, right? That shows that someone's thinking outside the box,
right? Especially a lot of people, since it's from a MAC level D1 school.
Oh yeah, I'm there.
Absolutely.
When?
Right.
Well, you have
another thing. They have two options, so find one.
That's another thing too. Is
That's a good deal.
You can think outside the box and reach out to some programs. You may not get the answer you want, but sometimes, like especially we're getting around this time, we got some time off and they're still playing. Hey, can I come watch a practice? Or can I, I'm going to be in the area, wink, wink. And then you drive 5 hours to get there. But,
this kind of an invite,
I would be
solid.
all over that.
Yep.
That sounds really good.
That is solid. So, so our response is yes.
Yeah.
Go to that.
I would,
it's just worth going to. It's not one of those deals where you're going to go, you're going to sit and watch a basketball game, and then it's going to be a table where you just walk through and, don't meet the coaches. And that's another thing, real quick, game day visits. Hearing from a lot of guys are taking game day visits, but they're like sitting in the seats and they never meet a coach, never talk to a coach. And that's, you really, if you're just going, right, and you're just getting free tickets to watch a game, you might want to evaluate what their interest level of.
So just to give you an idea, like if you go to one of those game day visits, and I just saw a picture that you posted, Corday Gage at CBC, we'll use him as an example.
Yep.
If the wide receiver coach is taking a picture with you,
that's a good sign.
That's a really good sign. If you're there and you don't meet him, it doesn't mean it's over, but it means they don't know who you are.
Right.
Right. And that means that you're just on a name on a list.
And it's promotional.
And that person checking you in is just a GA or a volunteer or a student assistant that's checking you in. They have they don't know. Right?
But if you blow up, they can come back and say, hey, remember when we invited you to this game?
Right. And so
covering the bases.
We've been on you since day one, even though they might not even known you were there.
Right.
But there are certain kids that they certainly know are there.
Yeah.
And I would say Corday is one of them. Yep. I mean, he's got a lot of stock.
He's a legacy.
He's got legacy.
Has an offer from UNLV.
Yeah. I mean, he's a dude.
He's a dude.
Right? I mean,
he's a dude. Hasn't gotten a lot of playing time this year. But again,
last week had a big touchdown.
Had a huge touchdown. And I mean, there's a reason when I did my preseason rankings, I had him amongst the top 10 in his class. Now you're going to see that take off more. And especially with him going there and posting that picture, all that's going to do is get more guys wanting him to come there. And he's going to go higher on their board and their list of stuff they want to interact with.
Again, picture with the position coach or the head coach.
That's nice.
That's usually a sign.
Right. Picture of just the scoreboard.
Did you enjoy
your game?
A picture of you and your buddies. Great.
Yep. But
the reality of it is like when you get singled out, like I've been to a bunch of camps. I've been to a bunch of things. And you take, for instance, Drinkowitz takes pictures with every kid at junior camps, right? The little kid camp.
Yep.
Something as significant or insignificant of how he postures or what his body language is in the picture.
Yep.
Can be a tip like, oh, this guy's important, this guy's not important. And you hate to say it that way. If he's doing that with a youth camp, he's doing that with the high school guys and the portal guys, right? I mean, like, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to the recruiting game, but if you're good at reading people, you can see a lot of what's going on in the recruiting game pretty easily.
And hopefully your parents can read it, if nothing else.
Yeah, kids, it's tough for you. I mean, because you haven't really experienced it.
You got the bright eyes, kids go up there. There's some kids up there and they don't stop talking about it. They're freshmen. They get to go to a game and they're just super excited. So playoffs are winding down. We're about to get out of here, but some really good games. It's getting harder to decide which games to go to.
A few shocking ones last week. Eureka going down, which I did not see that
coming.
Didn't
see that one coming.
Did not see that
bodes well for Lafayette. Although Washington,
I was really wanting to see that rematch.
Me too.
I mean, that was and I'm sure that
was one.
It just stinks because that was setting up to be a really classic game.
CBC at Kirkwood, going to be a good game.
Yes.
Lee Summit at Lee Summit North, another good game. Two really good teams. All my teams that I had in Class 6 are still playing. I still think you're probably going to wind up. And if Lee Summit North beats Lee Summit, they're probably looking at a Nixa team, right, before they get the opportunity to play, a CBC. Before they get the opportunity to possibly play a DeSmet, or Blue Spring South or Park Hill. Those are the guys that are really on a roll. So
should be fun.
Go out and watch some football this weekend. Some great games out there. If anybody's got a suggestion for me to come to your game, you want me, JP Rock, to come out there, go ahead. I'll cheer with the with the group.
Hey, it was good. Someone sent the video in today. People sending questions. I think that interaction's always good.
Keep it up. Yep.
Definitely love that.
Go ahead and reach out to us at our social medias right there. Producer Joe on top of things. Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on the gram, JP Rock MO and JP Rock Scout U on X and Instagram. Football360show.com for all things Football 360 Show. Go to YouTube, Football 360 Show, like, share. What else are they supposed to do on
Subscribe.
YouTube? Subscribe. That's a biggie. And of course, follow on at Football 360 Show. Everybody go out, have fun. Should be pretty decent weather for November. Usually all bundled up.
Yeah, very nice.
But it should be pretty good. Everybody stay safe. That's number one. And don't hurt anybody.
Stop on the whistle.
Stop at the whistle. Yeah,
there we go. That's a good advice, right?
Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
It's a gentleman's game. And we will talk to you next week, everybody. See ya.